everyone, and welcome to episode 24 of UK League Chat. Just myself and Tom on this one, but it should be a spicy episode, I think.
Yeah, we couldn't get a guest on because it was just too damn spicy.
Exactly,
You know?
I couldn't handle the heat. I can barely handle it myself. And so we're going to be doing our tier list.
That's brilliant.
I think we're expecting to be flamed at some point. You can't please everyone with a tier list, can you? It's just impossible.
But we got some. Last time we did it, we got some good enjoyment out of it because Barrage ran with it, and Enclave ran with it.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't really complain about that. And obviously, we've got the big predictions back as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty. Did you win it last time? And did I get beaten by the guests in the end?
No, I think you clawed it back. I'm pretty sure. Hold on, I'll quickly double check.
Oh, it was the Fnatic 3-2, which I got correct, wasn't it, in the end? So
you pulled it out of the bag right on the last week.
Somehow. I'm guessing you're going to try and find someone else as a guest. You're not giving me a free run because that's going to be frustrating.
Yeah, well, I've Megalodontus from Esports News UK is going to fill in for him this week, and then and we'll keep doing like we did last time. If we've got a guest on, then they can help us out as well. Just to confirm, in spring, you did come second. So guest predictions had 45 points. We did do some extra points in playoffs as well. You had 47, and I ended up with 49. So it wasn't that far out.
It was close in the end. Yeah. I mean, we make it sound like it was a lot closer than what it was, but really, you had already won by I think it was the last day. But it makes it look a little bit better that it was kind of close.
But then your prediction of Fnatic just that just overwrites everything. If you get perfect prediction in the final and against the odds.
I predicted it correct. I said probably going to go 2-0 and then that's it. I didn't say it exactly like that, but
close enough. All right. Before we get into the tier list, then there is like a bit of news that's happened. A couple of different things since we last spoke. If we're going in chronologically, the first thing was the EU Masters seeding that got announced, and let's call it what it is. It's bollocks, isn't it?
It's terrible. It is absolutely terrible, and a lot worse words have been used to other people. It's not even the fact we should have at least got two group stages. Yeah. At least got two group stages, but we've been given a playoff, a play-in, and a group stage spot, and so I'm not of like the massive opinion that maybe we should have got 3 spots. I would have said because it's a new league, you would have thought that it probably did deserve it. However, it would feel a little bit bad for what would have been the one to be replaced, and that would have been Poland. Especially considering Poland obviously won EU Masters. Did they win EU Masters? No, they didn't.
No,
they finished second.
Yeah,
but they still did good. And obviously, like, Poland has been seen as a region which is quite a strong region, but has never fully performed to its max. So it's not the argument for Poland; it's the argument for comparing us, I would say, to like Italy and Greece. Is the one which kind of hurts a little bit. It's like you've created this league with 12 teams, and let's be honest, it feels like a lot of these organizations thought they were going to be 3 seeds at least, because I can imagine a lot of these organizations have put money into these teams. And for them to basically turn out, look, it could just be Excel and Fnatic, or, it could be anyway. I did a tweet and I was like, I feel sorry for the Nordic sides, because if it is just Excel and Fnatic, then what was the point of the NLC?
Yeah.
Because you've essentially just lost your spots, which you could have got, and you could have got more money off a league, which, yes, might not be quality-wise good, but you still would have got money off even being in groups. So it was pointless. So if you're Team Singularity, you would be furious.
Yeah, and even from like a player side, that I think, obviously the orgs want to win EU Masters. It's good for them. They get their prize money and whatnot. For a player, the idea is to get to EU Masters, and then that's where you can get more popularity and maybe get to the LEC. Because we kept talking about before that NLC can be good because it's like all the Danish players could come back, and that player pool is really strong. But if now you're one of those players and you think, well, then I could come back, but I can come back. If I'm not an XL Fnatic, then there's 2 academy teams with 2 EU Masters slots in the league. Is there even any point? Would you just be better off going to Greece or Italy, somewhere else, and still get 2 EU Masters?
I do have a feeling, and I might be wrong, but they may change it. I mean, they might. I doubt they would, but it does feel like, and we're obviously in that bubble of the scene, but it does feel like there's been a lot of people who have been like, this is a new league. They shouldn't have been getting like 2 spots. Yeah. And like I said, I think even if it was 2 group stage spots, then at least that provides 2 teams with guaranteed money, because in the play-ins, they don't make money for competing in the play-ins. It's only when they go into the group stage that then prize money is actually given out. And that's why a group stage shot is so much more important than getting a potential playing spot. Because you could just get a bad group in play-ins, despite being the second best team in the play-ins group, but get a bad group and then a bad draw, and then you're out and you've made nothing. And like I said, yeah, there's obviously more incentive with the league itself. I do think that if they're not going to change it, it will be next season. I do think that they might be tempted to expand EU Masters. This is obviously pure speculation, but with next year, the way that they do it with EU Masters, it seems, is that they keep the 2 splits similar, and that's what they've kind of done here. I wouldn't be surprised if, as the ecosystem is getting more and more developed, to be fair, I wonder if some of these other major regions are going to get extra spots as well, because it does feel like, and it's not even just the NLC. I think there's like, if you're in like Spain, or even Poland or something like that. There are actually some strong sides, and in Germany there's some strong sides as well who don't qualify. So it is just one of those at the end of the day. But yeah, it's disappointing. I kind of hope that it doesn't deter the league from improving.
Yeah, I think maybe it's lucky they've announced this after. Teams have built their rosters, or I don't know if teams maybe would have known about it. I think the way people reacted on Twitter looked like it was kind of out of nowhere as well. So
there might have been to be fair, it could have been a decision where it's like, it might have been, we're going to give you 3 spots, oh, but then and then like coming to close to like the last like 2 weeks of actually deciding it, they might have thought, oh, but then Poland, because it is unfortunately it is Poland which the spot has gone off. But then, like I said, I don't think there would have been as much uproar if it was like, right, yeah, you are a new league, but you can't take from these premier leagues right now because you've not been proven. But here's 2 group stage spots guaranteed instead of a playing spot.
There's still a spot that's gone somewhere else, isn't there? Because there was 4 spots essentially for the 2 leagues before. So I think one went to Poland, one went. I don't know where the other one's gone. I
think one's gone to another division who's got like I think 2 play, because the way they've split it is they've got, I think it's like 2 sides, and then some sides have got like just 2 playing spots, haven't they, instead of a group stage guaranteed and stuff. But like I said, I don't think there'd be uproar if it was 2 group stages. So at least then it gives the potential for the NLC to next season, if they do perform well, which, to be fair, like I even look like UK sides get shat on a lot, right? Let's be honest, yeah, in EU Masters, in terms of like just the public perception of them. Yeah. But Fnatic Rising reached the semi-finals. XL, obviously, both the Fnatic and XL sides then made it out of group stages this time as well. So it's not like they're a bad region. Then you put that on top of like even, yes, the Nordics didn't perform, and maybe you could say if the Nordics did perform, to say if Vipers did get into group stages at least and did qualify, that could have turned it. There might have been something around that. They might have took the average performance for the Nordic scene and the average performance for the UK scene, and then that's how they've sorted their coefficient out. Instead of combining them, they've aggregated it. But either way, it's just wrong. It's just wrong.
The saddest part about it for me is that like people were talking about on Twitter, with people were sitting here trying to work out how they've decided it, and I think we're putting more thought into it than the Riot did when they made the decision. Because I think Frumi said it. It looks like they've just kind of gone, oh, we got these 2 leagues, just give them the Nordic one, and it looks like they've basically not thought about it, because if they had thought about it, there's no way they could decide that as the final thing.
100%. Especially considering like literally it was a year ago. Not even a year ago. It was literally the beginning of Spring Split where they announced, obviously before the whole DreamHack LVP nonsense happened, but they announced that the UK scene was going to be like one of the premier national divisions. And then a year later, we've gone from that to being what is it? Are we the 5th league in this now.
Joint 5th with Italy, Balkans, and Greece.
Which, and again, it's no disrespect to Italy, Balkans, and Greece, but we've got better sides than them. We just got better. We've got especially now.
Like we see, Torek did like a write up about it, and he was looking at where the UK, just the UK teams finished. I think he did Nordics as well, and they were higher than these other leagues. It's literally, it just doesn't make sense. And for me, that's the saddest bit, because I just don't think they've thought about it.
And it would have been nice to have seen. And like I said, I think 3 was the hope. I think 2 was what I expected, but 2 groups. Yeah. But one group, 1 playoff is not good enough. And it does, like I said, it puts that fear in my eyes. And obviously, we've not discussed the sides, but if for example, a BT and a Fnatic do go through, then you could just say that it's a UKLC, because you wouldn't know, because it's the exact same sides essentially. Which have gone up, and you'd be like, oh, well, what was the point of merging the 2 regions together? Because these 2 sides have just gone through. Yeah, they might be stronger because of the competition, but that doesn't help the leagues. That just helps Fnatic and Excel then at the end of the day. True. Which is, one of those. Yeah.
Well, then the other bit of slightly better news for the NLC and the UKLC was this sudden announcement from I don't know if the BBC announced it. I think it was on like Esports Inside or something like that.
Yeah.
That it's going to be. I don't think it's not on TV, is it? The NLC.
No,
it's like a BBC app or.
So what it is, it's going on BBC Sport app, which means that they will be getting a little bit of news coverage out of it, which is good. Because I'm pretty sure that BBC ever since like COVID, they've done a lot in terms of like with FIFA and stuff like that as well. And so I think they're going to be doing a little bit of coverage, and I think they might have an esports section now on BBC Sport, but I might be wrong there. But it is also going to be on the iPlayer, which isn't a bad thing at all, like for it to be like on the iPlayer, because at the end of the day, is it going to be warranted enough to probably be on like BBC One, BBC Two, BBC Three? Probably not, but I don't think that's, well, BBC Three is online anyway, but BBC One and BBC Two isn't the target audience for people like that. Where if you're scrolling on BBC iPlayer, and you're a younger audience, and you see UK League of Legends, and you like esports, and may not even League of Legends, you might just like Rocket League or something like that as well. You probably will click on it and at least give it a go and see what it's like. They've got the exposure now. It's down to, I think, the leagues to create a really, really professional environment and a professional kind of production, because you need to drag those viewers in. It is the case of you don't want it to be, and I'm not saying that the production is bad, by the way, for what the UKLC was at all. But if you're a viewer and you kind of are just watching LEC, and this is your just 5 seconds of looking at this UK scene, you need to make sure that 5 seconds draws those people in from a production standpoint. And I think it's only a good thing, even if it adds an extra 100 people viewing it. That's always a good thing. And the media exposure has actually been pretty good for it in terms of, BBC is a big corporation in the UK, obviously. And so the fact that the NLC has been given that, and the UKLC as well, is really, really interested in it. It's the first time I've seen kind of like a first and a second division of esports really been prioritized and focused. And it's League of Legends. And so probably from a broadcaster standpoint, they've probably looked at this and thought, League of Legends is very, very popular in esports. It's one of the most popular esports, right now, anyway. Along with probably like CS:GO and other things like that. It's kind of family friendly, family orientated still. Where obviously with CS:GO it's a little bit more violent to that hardcore audience, but they probably looked at that and thought, actually, it may not be the LEC, but if we can get something like this on, this is actually pretty good for our demographics anyway, because this is still League of Legends and a competitive League of Legends tournament, which is sponsored by Riot. And then again, I tweeted through me when he announced this. Obviously, it was in jest, and I was like, this definitely sounds like a league which deserved two EU Masters spots. The BBC have not invested in, but they've taken the time to say, yes, we will put this on, because that is a risk for them as well. Because even though 100 people might not see it, if it's not good, it looks bad on the BBC as well. Because even if it is just on their online platform, and you never know where that could eventually lead up into. I doubt it with anything. But to put in perspective, AEW, they are on ITV Player, I believe. I don't think they actually broadcast. Which AEW, which is a wrestling federation, one below next to WWE. They have a deal with ITV where it's on the ITV Player, and that has helped them loads just by being on that platform. And a similar thing could actually happen with the BBC and League of Legends.
Yeah, definitely
I
interesting
love
to see
talking about stuff like that.
Yeah, how the viewership does change it all, because we know that UKLC kind of struggled a bit, especially compared to other ERLs, getting boosted a lot by the front page of Twitch. But
yeah, it's really difficult with viewership though when it comes to online, because a lot of it is while I don't know, I believe that they are going to be playing it live on the BBC Sport app and on BBC iPlayer, and I don't know then if there's a playback ability where if they want to replay it or stuff like that, but I don't know if they're going to be doing something like that, because that could also help. I don't know the intricacy, or it might just be an hour delay, or there's loads of other things. I think all that's really what I've heard is that it's just been announced that they're doing it, and I think the only time we're really going to find out what it's going to be is when it starts, and then we see it the next day and it's got like the whole replay of it or something like that. But it'll be interesting. But I think the interesting part will be what the media coverage would be on BBC Sport. Will BBC Sport actually cover it, in the NLC? Well, after an NLC match has happened, even if it's not a prime time coverage, but if you're scrolling through and you're seeing football, esports, that could actually be a good thing overall as well.
Yeah, definitely.
We just need a football team. That's all we needed. We just needed a football team.
There was talk, wasn't there, when the LEC was franchised? I think there was a few sniff around. I kept seeing Arsenal.
I mean, there's Schalke, which are there, isn't there? But like, they just needed a football team just for like the clickbait articles, isn't it? That's all you needed. Yeah. Because you could put like Everton win Northern Clash, and then type it in. It's like Everton Esports beat Nordavind. It'd have been brilliant.
Yeah. We'll see. Maybe one day. All right, let's move on to the spicy topic then, shall we? Let's get into it with our tier list.
We don't know each other's tier list here, which is interesting.
What way do you think we should do it? Should we go from the top down or the bottom up?
I think we should go top down.
Yeah, I think the top
will be bottom.
Let's do top down, because I think that'll be probably more similar, and we'll leave the more controversial ones to the end, shall we?
Yes.
So I think we've both done it. We've done S+, S, A, B, C, D. So that helps.
How many sides have you got in S+? Because I've got one.
I've got one.
And is it BT?
Oh, it is, yeah. So that's. I think that was going to be the obvious one. Yeah. That's kind of why I put. Because I put S and I put XL in it, and then I was thinking, well, maybe I couldn't really fit the rest below, and I thought, well, we'll go on to the next ones. But I thought there were some other strong rosters, and it was just the fact that XL were that bit even above that. So that's why, I put mine in S+.
For me, XL, from what we've seen, now obviously we've got to put this with, we don't know what players are like in terms of training. We can go off kind of how they've performed in some ARLs, but we don't know everything about the ERLs as well. So we're going off kind of like our opinion and a little bit of research we've done. So it's probably not going to be correct with some sides. In fact, I would be surprised if we get some sides incredibly wrong because of it. Because there are some teams which haven't performed, I would say, or some players which haven't performed on an ERL stage that well, but actually could be incredible players behind the scenes and work well with a team. But BT are, for me, a side which the only change which they made was special for hat-tricks, which I actually don't think is a downgrade at all. I don't think it's an upgrade. I just think it's kind of like, it's similar, and they'll do, while a different job, they'll both perform really well. I think hat-tricks could still be considered one of the best mid laners in the NLC right now. There's a couple of other, few good mid laners coming in now, which is also very interesting. We said the mid lane pool was strong last split. I think it's a lot stronger this split, which is even more interesting. But I just think that overall, Deadly and Kasing was great. You've got Sendo, who performed, I think, absolutely brilliantly last split. Not particularly in EU Masters, but in the UKLC, I think he played very, very well. And then Taxa was another one who also played very, very well in the UKLC. Again, not in EU Masters, but I did pick it up in the end as well. So for me, I just find them the stronger side in the UKLC last split. They've not really got better, but they've not really got worse. And while I think the other sides around them have improved, I don't think it's enough for me to be like, right, these are on the same tier as XL.
Yeah. I think it's what you said before. Yeah, in spring, obviously they had the mess up in the final, but they were clearly the best team in the UK. They haven't really changed much. We said just the one roster change, and I think, with the rest of the players, actually, they've just got even more time just to consolidate what's already there. As far as we know, no change in coaching wise. So, and when we spoke to Hatrix, he was very much with the idea that he could fit into how the team needs to play, but he also wasn't, afraid to kind of stand out and play his way. So, if anything, it may even be better that they'll. Maybe a kind of a strong voice like that might help as well.
And definitely with Sendo, Taxa, and Kasing especially, like those three have been together since XL UK started at this point now. So they've had a lot of solid, and you can see when an org invests in a player, and it's a little bit easier for an academy side, I guess. But when an org actually invests in these three players, there is that natural synergy, and it does then make it easier for when players came in. And it was the exact same with Deadly. I think the reason why Deadly performed is because there was already that like massive synergy between the four other players at that point. And Deadly then seems to have fit in very well. And I feel like it'd be another similar transaction with Hatrix. It's not four new players which are coming in. They are changing 1, 2, and the only reason why they changed one is because they moved one of them up to their actual squad themselves. So it's not even like it was like a change which was a bad reason. It wasn't because this player performed badly why they removed him. He actually performed too well for that side that they moved him up, which is always a positive thing and probably a good thing for. Hatrick said like it gives him motivation that actually this side is willing to push players up. And he's always been outspoken that he wants to get to the LEC. That's what he said that he's wanted to do. I can imagine Deadly also being probably one of those players. I don't think Deadly left Giants to be in the academy. He left Giants to probably want to eventually get into the LEC. And he feels that this is another one of those reasons for that.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Maybe even seeing Special make the jump. Not only is it good for Hatrix coming in, because maybe part of the reason he joined, but then those other people that you send those and Taxes, I mean, those two have been there for probably like 2-3 years almost now. So for them to be still sticking around and see someone else get up, then they'll think they've got as good a chance of as ever, really. Especially, maybe even especially Sendo, where they've just got Cries in the main team. If he isn't working out, they may even make a swap. We never know.
Yeah, it's very interesting. But I do have to say this, that I don't think they'll be as dominant as what they were last split.
No, yeah. I think,
last split was incredibly dominant.
Yeah, I think with the merger, it would be a surprise, really, if they managed to. Yeah, I agree. I don't think they will be. Let's go on to S tier. How many teams have you got in there?
I had 2 sides in my S tier.
I've got 2 as well. Is Fnatic one of them?
Fnatic is one of them.
Okay.
And we'll start with Fnatic then.
Yeah, so with Fnatic, I mean, they've technically they were the best team in spring because they won it, but we all know they weren't. But then saying that, the kind of issues they had, and I think Pride was one that we talked about a lot, and anyone that saw Smeagol on our episode last week, he really went off on Pride. He's clearly not a fan. I thought Pride looked much better in EU Masters, at least, than what he had in the rest of the spring split. And my kind of hope is for Fnatic is, seeing as the fact that we've not seen any roster change, they haven't officially announced a roster yet, but
it's going to be the same roster. It'd be really, really incredible if they managed to find someone else, and if they did, I don't think it'd be anybody who would upgrade this squad.
And my hope is that at least if they haven't made changes, maybe they are just, if they've been working at it for the last couple of months when we haven't seen them very much, some of those things may have been ironed out. They may have fixed issues they had and may come out stronger.
So the issue which I have with this side is, I do have them. Overall, I actually have them 3rd. I don't actually have them as the second best side, but I do have them in S tier. And it is because they have got a good core of Dan, Magi, Felix, and Mate. The outliers are Bravado and Pride. Bravado was okay. I'm seeing a lot of set, which can be played anywhere at this point. So Bravado's probably going to be pretty good at that at this point. He's quite good at those type of champions. So, and for me, it seems like top lane is starting to become kind of just a massive tank meta. Which means that it's going to be a less impactful role than what it could have been in the future, in the past. Sorry. So maybe the damages, which maybe Pride, damages sounds like a bad word, but maybe like the disadvantages that Pride had actually is mitigated by the meta itself. I hope that the reason why they've made these changes, like you said, made no changes, like you said, is because I think that they might have sorted something out. And this side did beat those 3 games against XL were what Fnatic Rising wanted to be the entire split, in terms of like they were just mechanically just really smart about the game, and I hope that then they've developed that and that could actually improve them. There's a lot of pressure, and this is one of the sides which I could see, which I did consider could they have dropped with the increasing strength of the league, but I just couldn't put them in like an A tier. I still consider them one of the better teams despite the flaws. And when we say flaws, we're talking about flaws for what is we're talking about flaws compared to like the XL side, and what academy side should be getting. Possibly if I'm going to put it at team, but say like Dusty had maybe Pride and Bravado, we might not have been as harsh on them because of the level where probably Dusty hopefully would want to win the split, but where we consider a team like Dusty to be. I just think that Fnatic, again, they might benefit early on from just not making any changes, which will benefit both academy sides, and it'll just be interesting. But it could be one of those when if they win like 2 games out of 3, I might be considering like, oh no, is this not going to be? This might not be as good as I thought. So.
And that kind of thing, especially when you're a team like that had a bit of a rocky split earlier, and if they make that decision of let's stick together, we'll sort our issues out, and in summer we'll be ready. If they go and lose like their first 2 games, they're gonna and they've been working on their issues for the last couple of months. The kind of mental damage could even be pretty severe as well. So excited to see that one. That's kind of the first one out of my list. I was kind of thinking that it could go up or down. Really, it could it could get better. It could just be the same issues, and they've just stagnated even more. Who is your other side in S tier then?
I've got Munster.
Same here.
Looking at their side, I've got Munster as above in terms of like tiers themselves. I've got Munster above Fnatic. I don't want to say it screams an Envision. It screams like a better version of Envision for me last split. So Envision was this academy killer roster. They built players which they thought were at that point, in the UKLC times, because the quality of the league has got better overall, that these were the players which could take down academy players. They had Shikari. Obviously, Munster's got Shikari. They've got Maxlaw, who's going to be this unknown entity at this point. Played for Misfits last year. We got Hiver, who played for Misfits last year. These are top quality LEC players who have played LEC. Sorry, and kind of Maxlaw in that case hasn't played competitively for a year, and this is his first choice back. So it must have been a good offer for him to have actually come back to this league, and he must have been invested in kind of what the team will be. And then you've got Unforgiven, who was in the Polish league, which apparently is better than the UK scene.
He's had a step down.
So in fourth place, he was 4th place in for the one of the Polish sides, I believe. And so he looks like a solid player. I think it was with Illuminar, who probably would have expected to have got to EU Masters. The only outlier I see is Sebex.
Yeah.
He's the only one where, out of the research I've done, in terms of how his teams have performed, hasn't stood out. But he could just be one of those players where he's been a good player in a bad team. I'm really, really hoping that this side does well, and it's good to see 2 British players as well in this side and being like, this is a top contending side. You could genuinely get a good side out of just full British players. I think you just need to invest in it a little bit, I think, because of how it is. But I really think that Munster have created a really, really good roster if they all gel together.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you say about the first name you obviously see, you obviously notice is Max Law, and you can't see Max Law in the team and not expect it to be a team in an ERL anyway, because he's obviously been in the NLC for a number of years. He had the Worlds run was the roster he was in on Misfits, one that always almost beat SKT in a best of 5. So to have him in this level, not even just for the team, I think for the league is really good, especially with the fact that he's had that bit of a break and people are going to be wondering, where is he at? Is he?
I think it was the case as well with Max Law, is that he made the decision to step away because he said that he had a mental boom, essentially. Like that Misfits roster, which Hyper was also in at that point, because I think he played like 8 games during when they were swapped. Because he was with Premier, and then they swapped the whole roster around. I think he played like 8 games. I think I checked, it was like 1-4, lost 4, which is pretty good considering how much of a mess that Misfits roster was at that point. That a break probably was just really good. It's not like he's not been playing solo queue. He's still been playing and everything like that. So it's just, it could work 2 ways. It could be one of those where it's like, right, this is the fire which he needs and the ignition which sparks kind of, what could be a very, very good player who next split, if he does perform well, I won't be surprised if some LEC teams do look at him because he's a player who has this history and has come back. Or it could be the case of, is this my one last go? And that mental boom still continues, and it's not the Max Law which we saw 3-4 years ago. So it's going to be very interesting. And it was a little bit, and I don't want to say it's exactly that, but it reminds me a little bit like Kasing, because Kasing obviously had the Splice run, and then it kind of just went a little bit downhill, and now he's found himself in like a really good role, I think, for Excel. And while he's not LEC, he's probably happy being this kind of leader in this Excel kind of organization as well in the academy. And so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But for a new organization, they've clearly decided that they want to win. Like this isn't a team which is saying, oh yeah, we'll maybe get that fairy tale 3rd place seed for Worlds. Yeah, this is a side which wants to finish first. And they've wanted to make sure of that.
Yeah, and they finally got a Twitter admin as well.
Yes, yeah, there wasn't okay. Now they've got the side. Now let's just hope kind of that they can promote their brand through this, because they've got a recognizable player in Max Law. And even for the UK scene, like Shikari is like a very, very like popular UK player. And even maybe like Hiver's played in the LEC. There are people which know about him. So use that and get the most out of it. The only, like I said, the only issue is I actually look at the mid lane from me personally, and I would put him in terms of the bottom half of mid laners. But that is purely because the mid lane pool was so strong. And at what point is there a budgeting thing? Because Shikari was apparently not going to do the split. Like this is not like insider knowledge, but from what we know, like Shikari only wanted a good team to go to. He did it. That's why he went to Envision. It didn't work out with Envision, but the reason why, when we speaking to Prosper, wasn't it? He said that he told Shikari, "Yeah, we will build this team, this academy killer team," and it didn't work. And it did clearly look like it affected it, like it affected Shikari in the Fnatic side when he got dropped. So they brought him back. So he's clearly again invested. Shikari needs to be invested in the side to actually join a side at this point, and this seems like one of those teams.
Yeah, if we talk, just going back to what you were saying about the mid lane, and the tricky thing I found when I was trying to work out my tier list is kind of being people that aren't playing in solo queue with all these different players, and we've not, unfortunately, not got time to watch every ERL. So there's a lot of players here we've not really seen before. So in some cases, the best we can do is trawl through some Leaguepedia pages, and it's. You can take it with a grain of salt because someone might play well, might just be on a bad team. His last split wasn't good though.
It was 0-14.
Yeah, it was in. I think it was in France.
Yeah.
And literally his team didn't win a game, which, without looking at the matches, like I say, maybe take it with a grain of salt because he may have been playing out of his skin. I don't know. But he's got to be, I guess, not happy with that, and that kind of struck me as maybe a worry when you're looking through the roster. But then at the same time, I think when they've, I don't know, say convinced Max Law to join, not that like it was like a bad thing for him, but they tricked him into it. But when they get a player like that to buy into the team, you'd imagine he's got some say in the players.
Yes,
and he's not going to join unless he knows he's got a good roster. So I can only imagine that maybe he's played with SebX, or he sees what he's like in solo queue even, and thinks he'll be a good player. And from that, you hope that it won't be a real issue for them. But in the end, like I say, when we're looking at just Leaguepedia and looking at their past teams and stuff, that was the one thing that kind of stood out as a bit of a question mark.
I think as well, one thing which kind of put them above Fnatic for me wasn't actually a player. It's Ferndog being an actual head coach in the side. Like, he's not this ambassador kind of like director voice figure or something like that. This is a new organization who decided, right, let's get Ferndog. He's played in the LEC, he's coached in the LEC with Excel. He'd helped Excel, which was a dominant UK scene before they even were in the LEC. And let's give him these players. I wonder, it could just be a case of, we don't know how the organization works. We know it's Phelan. We do know that it's still Phelan, and like it is run by essentially Phelan at this point. But they may have just said, Ferndog, right, we've got more money behind us now. You try and find a roster and let's see what you can think of. And I can imagine as soon as Maxlaw came up, that would have been the first name on his list. Shikari definitely seems like, because obviously the link with Ferndog and Shikari goes back way in the Excel days as well. So he's definitely a player which he probably would have wanted. And like you said, there might have been a case where, because Maxlaw's there, Hiver might have decided, because they were while not. I don't think they played together because they just swapped the entire squad, didn't they?
I think they did before, when I think Maxlaw, when he was on Misfits Academy, and even when Alfari was on there, I think Hiva was on there at the same time. So I think it probably was one that he had a say in as well.
So, but it is very, very interesting. I looked at the other squads and I was like, these are good squads, but this is the only squad for me out of the non-academy sides which screams, at least at this point, like this is a side which can challenge the academy sides. I think there's some sides which can give them a good fight, but this is one of the sides where I'm like, oh, okay, we might not actually be getting two academy sides going to EU Masters. Which, to be fair, we say this, but like obviously Diabolus went to EU Masters at one point, I believe, didn't they?
Yeah.
And then I think the other two times was XL Fnatic, wasn't it? So
I think the first one was Enclave as well.
Oh yes, it was. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know who. I guess it would have been XL with them, because that was before Fnatic were even there, wasn't it? But...
And then it was Fnatic Denies, and then it was XL Fnatic, wasn't it? I believe. But yeah, they're the only two sides I've got in that tier right now.
Let's move on then. Let's go to A tier. How many teams you got in there?
I've got two.
I've got two as well. This is going to be really disappointing if we're all the same. Is one of them Nordavind?
One of them is Nordavind.
I knew that one. They'd at least be in there. I knew if Nordavind have got Mummus, there's no way you put them less than at least 80.
I was thinking S+. I was thinking S+ with Mummus, but unfortunately we haven't got Kerberos, but we still got Mummus. So
yes.
But this is a good side, I think, for it to be in. Yeah. I mean, Ericsson was Nordavind's best mid laner last split, and he was playing for Barrage on loan. So this guy obviously has proven himself against some of the UK talents. Anyway, obviously there's a lot more Nordic players as well. But yeah, Mummus, I think this could be the strongest side I think he's been a part of in the UK scene. And it's no offense to the two MnM renditions which he was at. But for me, this side just looks a lot more complete. And we know that Nordavind have ambitions and are very ambitious orgs in terms of competing in League of Legends. So the only issue... In fact, what are your first impressions before I talk about the one of, not the glaring issue, but one issue I have?
I think you touched on it about Ericsson as well. For in terms of looking at two solo lanes, in Ericsson and Mummus, I think that's one of the got to be one of the stronger pairs in the league, especially where we even talked about, for example, Munster that are we put them above them.
Yeah.
But if you look at solo lanes, Munster and Ericsson, hardly any of the teams I think have stronger than that. I'd say probably even only Excel have stronger solo lanes.
It's really hard actually, especially the top lane. I would say to differentiate in terms of who I would prefer in a squad between Shikari and Mumus, because they both do different things for a side.
I think it depends what the rest of your roster is really and where you want it to play through. Shikari is one of those ones that he can sit on the island and just I think never concede and never lose. And
I think that both of these top laners have picked the right sides to be on. Obviously, they might not have the choice to pick which either side, but I think if you actually look at the players around them, I think you've actually got more of a... there's a lot more of a carry-orientated chance for Mumus in Nord than what there would have been, I think, at Munster, which for me looks quite bot-heavy in terms of they look like they're actually going to push through the bot lane or, you use the jungle to maybe facilitate the mid laner, but it doesn't seem like it's a top lane game for them, which is good. Shikari, like I said, that feels like it's a bit of a disrespect on Shikari, but Shikari's perfect at the style of League of Legends, which he does, and he's smart enough to know not to deviate too much from it, and I think that's what really, really makes him a quality player. And Mumus also, I think, does the same thing. You don't see Mumus on not safe, but massively tanky champions to the fact where he is not going to be included into the side. You want him to be included into the side, and if you don't, then I feel like you're kind of making a mistake picking Mumus and not letting him play the best he wants to play. The issue which I have is Nolte, and I think Nolte mechanically is a top jungler. But there has been this consistency issue with Nolte, which has happened now for 2 to 3 splits, which I've seen for when I've been covering it anyway. There have been some games where I think he's been absolutely unbelievable, but then sometimes he just seems to not let the team down. But he's a hard player to rely on, I think, because you want him to do these great performances, but you can never rely on him to do a great performance every game. Like, for example, what Taxa is, who's probably a little bit safer, but every time you rely on Taxa, you know that you're going to get what you want. And similar with Dan, I think that's why he is that step down from them. But if he can work with a team and actually find that groove, this could be a really, really good team for him to work around. And he's played with Mumus before, which then makes me, again, in my mind, think, okay, are they going to focus the top lane a little bit more than other sides?
Yeah.
Which would be interesting. But then you look at the other players as well. And like I said, Ericsson, unbelievable mid laner. Chris Berg, let's be honest, Nordavind, from what we don't know much about the Nordic side, but from what we've been told, Nordavind should have probably won the Nordic Championships and were very disappointing. But they clearly feel that Chris Berg was not the issue, and that's why they've kept him on. They got rid of all four other players, so they've clearly thought, right, Chris Berg, actually, you're the one who isn't the issue, and you're the one we want to continue having. And then you've got is it Bebop Booley? I think is what his full name is.
Yeah.
Who won the Nordics with Vipers, and so if we just go off that, obviously was quite a good player, for them in terms of a Nordic region, and that Viper squad. Similar to the Team Singularity squad, as we're going to see from other sides, has been literally split up between all these LEC sides. So he's probably going to be a good player for them. I can't say that I watch them all the time. I watched a couple Vipers games, probably mainly because Den Voxnay was there, and I really enjoy watching him play. But I think that overall, it's a strong side. There isn't any massive weakness in this side as well, I feel. Unlike Fnatic, where I actually do see a potential weakness, the only issue I have maybe is Nolte, but I don't consider that a game ending, this is going to be a D tier side if this goes wrong.
Yeah. I think what you said about the bot lane, because I saw some sort of thing where the support clearly had a good split with Vipers, and where Chris Berg looks to have been around the scene for a fair amount of time, it might even just be that they want to have that bit of a safer bot lane, so they've kind of picked up this good support, put in with kind of an experienced ADC, so they can be a bit safer and then maybe focus on the top side. So it'd be interesting to see how they play as well, not only just how good they are.
And like we've seen with Ericsson, with Barrage, Ericsson was. I don't think it's unfortunate. It's not. I think it's easy to say. I think Ericsson was the best player for Barrage last split, and Barrage were a team which really, really pushed, especially Fnatic. Not really Excel, but they did push Fnatic, and Ericsson was a large part of that overall. So I do think that him being at Nordavind probably. I mean, I don't want to say that. Obviously, we don't know, but I would have thought that Barrage would have wanted him again. But he's obviously chosen Nord. He's probably, he might have even had a choice of looking at the two sides. We don't know. But it's a side which, again, if Fnatic do maybe falter, or XL get complacent, there is obviously there's that possibility of that happening. This could be a side which could take an EU Master spot, or at least I would say would be a playoff contender.
Yeah.
They are 100% for me the fourth. How many teams is it? 6 which go into playoff. There's 8.
I think it's 8
playoffs.
It's top 4 in each. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're definitely like a side which for me are guaranteed a playoffs, even if they don't perform at their best. For me.
And one thing we haven't even mentioned is I Hansen coming as a coach.
Yes.
Who I think he's, from what I understand, he's maybe not had the greatest time when he's been off. He's been in Spain. I'm not sure where else.
I mean, he did okay with Penguins, I believe. Was it Penguin? Yeah. No, that was mad. That was a pad, wasn't it?
No, I think it was Hansen. Let me.
Oh, was it?
Check.
Penguins,
Penguins and then BCN.
Yeah, but for me, like, all I look at is that he managed to win the regular season for Diabolus, and so he deserves every accolade
ever.
That's,
that's what people that watch UK scene. That's what they remember. The last time he was here, and he was really good, and he took that team that were decent players, but on paper they weren't the strongest players in their positions. Probably any of them really.
I mean, Kerberos is now at Unicorns of Love, isn't he? So that's it's pretty good.
So yeah, I mean, the fact that Hansen's come back to our scene as well, I think that should be really good for him as well. That was another kind of highlight for me.
And it's a Norwegian coach, so it could have only gone to Nordavind, clearly. I don't know why, but I just kind of felt that was that. I kind of when Nordavind first got in, I was like, if they don't get Hansen, I think there's an issue because they clearly do focus on. I mean, it's funny because you look at Munster, while they're an Irish org, technically, like they've got one of the best probably UK coaches in the. Is there any UK coaches in? I mean, there's Peter Dunn. Is Dunn?
Peter Dunn? I think the other Mad Lions guy, the one with I'm gonna forget his name.
But he's a top tier English coach anyway. So they've looked at that and they've thought, right, let's bring in a top tier English coach. And it seems that a very similar sense. Nordavind have done that with try and bring one of the best Nordic coaches in the ERLs at this point anyway, because obviously there's a lot of other coaches around other regions as well. There is actually quite a few good British coaches actually, and a few which are coming up in the UKLC, which is always nice. Unfortunately, we don't have 5 hours, so we can't talk about the UKLC.
True. Who was your other one in A tier then?
My other one was Riddle.
For God's sake, Tom.
Oh, have you got
You've
Riddle?
copied mine, I reckon. Yeah, Riddle's mine as well.
Riddle wasn't going to be a side I was going to put on. It was only when I was looking at them that I was like, actually, this is a strong squad. I didn't actually think much of them when their announcement, because I looked at it, I thought, oh, Max is unknown because I mean, obviously he got out of Elo Hell, which is FlyQuest Academy. And he went to Dark Passage and performed really well in the Turkish league. And for me, I don't know if this is how I feel about the ERLs, but I would consider, like, at this point, the Turkish league and the top ERLs to be maybe the Turkish league is slightly better at the top end, but the gap for me at this point doesn't seem too severe. But he performed well with Dark Passage, and then you've got Senkux as well, who was in the TCL with Gambit. Obviously was known for the bad split at Rogue and among other things, but he's still a quality mid laner who looks like instead of like taking a break has decided to actually go to the RLs and work his way up. Doxy again at Gambit, so it's another Russian because the 2 Russian players there, not Russian players, but 2 from Russian teams. And then you got Reje, who won for Team Singularity. The only one I don't really know too much about is the support, but he played in the TCL, so it's such a broad team, this one, that it could go either way.
When you look at that, because well, way like to say the TCL is maybe a bit above ERLs. It is a Riot sanctioned league.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's another team that has so many players that not only have played in that kind of higher league, but also they've all spent like a couple of years in there as well. So in terms of experience alone, it is one of the probably stronger teams in that sense. You may have the other question of, does that mean that maybe their ceiling's not as high? You'd expect if they've got experience, they should have mental strength. I wouldn't expect that they get in I don't know, any kind of downward spiral at any point. But then you could maybe have the question mark, how high can they get if we've kind of seen all these players, or we might not have seen them, but we've seen the level they've played at, and if they've been around for years and not reached above that yet, are they really going to challenge for a title? We don't know, but you'd think off the roster alone, they should be pushing for playoffs at least.
The thing with this side for me is, and I think you're right, I think with the other teams, we've kind of seen like what they could potentially be, but these guys are like, we know. I don't think Senkuts, and it's unfortunate, I don't think Senkuts is going to be suddenly an improved player, but we know the level which he can be, and I think if you do take these players at the level which they can be, and maybe even drop it a little bit if there is this motivational thing or whatever, then I still would put them at a very strong tier. And at this point, that's they're at least the middle of the table in the groups. Now, obviously, we're not taking into account where groups are. I can't even remember actually where the groups are in terms of, because the group draws have been made, so that could change things in terms of who gets playoffs or not. But for me, I think Maxi could be very, very good. There's a few Dark Passage players who, I believe Achu, who's also in the league, was at Dark Passage at one point as well. I really want to see what Doxy does, though, because Doxy's a player who actually I am very interested to see what type of top laner he is. I didn't really do too much research, but for me, when you've got two players from the same org in Doxy and Senkuts going in, there's that synergy there already, for one. And then you've kind of got, obviously, Maxi and Wedelo, who, while haven't played together, have played in the TCL at the same time. I mean, the support, I said I don't know much about him, but he played, 7 games for Fenerbahce, and didn't they win TCL? And I don't know when those games were being played, but I know he won 5, lost 2. And it could have been a time, it could have been where he maybe wasn't good enough and got dropped later on, but he did, he played his part in what was a top-tier TCL side at that time. So this is the team I'm most interested in, because these are actually players who none of them we've personally seen in an ERL system for at least, for us anyway. I've not seen any of these players in ERL, so this is going to be very, very interesting to see what this side does. And fair play to Riddle, because when I looked at the organizations coming into this, there are certain organizations which I think have not took it seriously, but Riddle are definitely one of these sides which have thought, you know what, we're going to build. Maybe it's not like the top ERL sides, but it's going to be something different, and it could work. And they have took a gamble, but I really enjoy the fact that they've done that.
Yeah, and when we had Smeagol on last episode, I think it was last episode, he was talking a bit about the roster building, and it sounds like what you said, that they are taking it seriously. He was saying that they kind of had the option of this kind of full roster, or they were also looking at Norwegian players if they wanted to kind of do a bit more branding oriented. So it looks like they are properly thinking about it. And one other thing he said was that this roster they've ended up with was kind of like the Envision scenario last year, where it's a group of friends that they all want to play together, and they think they can do well together, which could mean that they've you never know, may not be taking it seriously, because they will just maybe think it's just a bit of a laugh. But then chances are it's probably the opposite, where if they're all getting along, you think the morale and everything should be good. And Smeagol was saying that, and obviously he's not really going to say the opposite, but he was saying that it's been really good so far working with them, and they're all up for trying whatever he asks them to. So it looks like at least in team cohesion should be something they got going for him as well.
And we talked about the Envision roster like last season, like it was a massive failure. It wasn't. They didn't live up to the hype, but they still finished fourth playoffs. Right. So for me, that wasn't. And then they had to face XL. So it was kind of where I think we even said that if possibly it would have been Envision Fnatic at that time anyway. We thought that it could have been a closer matchup. I
think they played Fnatic, didn't they?
Oh, did they play Fnatic?
I think they snuck into third in the end, and Barrage were against XL.
Oh, never mind then.
But they did. I remember they definitely at some point took a game off Fnatic. I don't think it was in playoffs, but they were at some point Academy killers. I'm sure they beat them in one game. So mission accomplished there. Right,
now we're gonna change a little bit.
Yeah. So from this point down, I'll be honest. I know even less about the players that we're looking at now. And when I was doing this, I chopped this around so many times. Like the more I was looking at it, I was saying to Tom before we went live, I almost didn't even have a B tier. I almost had the rest of them C and below. But then I kind of thought I don't want to do what we did last time, where if there were players we didn't know much about, we just stuck them at the bottom.
Barrage. I was like, I don't know these players. Clearly they're bad. Like, who is this Ericsson? They're getting him on loan from a team. Come on, right?
Exactly. I'll give you one of my B tier then. I had MnM in B tier.
I do have MnM. I have MnM bottom of B tier though, but go on.
So let me double. Okay, so the one thing we're riding on, I think, is what is Monk going to be like in mid? That's like the big. That. I think based on the rest of the team, and again, they're players I don't know much about. I might have put them a bit lower, but the fact that Monk's coming back. And moving to mid lane, it's just you've got to put I don't know. It's a really difficult one because it could just be a total failure, or it could be one of the best mid laners in the league. So a lot of it's riding on that, I think.
The issue is that I don't think. Right. This is literally the detail I put in for Monk. Yeah, this is what I wrote. Yeah. So Monk was the main ADC for LDC in the French split. They finished first in the regular season. Then he got replaced by Hades. Then they won EU Masters. Now he is playing I Did. No idea what's going to... Now he's playing mid. No idea what's going to happen. I was like, that's such a weird timeline.
Yeah.
That this guy was doing so... Well, obviously, clearly, LDLC felt that they needed to make the change. But like, he still was performing well for what was the eventual EU Masters side.
His support was Yellow Star. If you think there's like anything that's ready to push your career as an ADC, having like the most experienced support almost on the planet laning with you, and then 1 month later you say, sod it, actually I'll just go mid lane instead, start from scratch.
Yeah, it's just so I don't understand it, right? and no offense to Barcode, yeah, but for me, like, I would be worried if I was Barcode and thinking, right, there is an ADC playing mid lane, yeah, who could potentially replace me and be. And I would say, from my limited knowledge anyway, I would say Monk is maybe a better ADC than him. Now, we've seen ADCs go to mid lane and play very okay. Like we've also seen mid laners go to ADC, and play well, So. But I look at the other side, and the reason why I put them in bottom is I don't see much in the other side. So to go through Kakan, I know Kakan from was it Diablos? Diablos, yeah, they finished 5th in 2019, which was the season after they won. But I still thought 5th was actually decent, considering that whole side imploded after the regular season victory. Second, they also finished 2nd in Forge of Champions, I believe, losing to Fnatic in that year as well, which was good. And then he finished. Recently, he was at Hybrid and finished 6th in the Nordics. So that's middle of the pack, I would say. But it could be a solid player, depending on, I guess, the players which are around him. Aesthetic, obviously, we talked about Nordavind previously. Finished 5th, was disappointing. I don't know if it was because clearly Nordavind thought these players were all going to be good, and I think clearly a lot of people thought all these players were going to be good. And so it might be a case of now they're all in different teams, which is essentially what has happened, that they actually all might be quality players again. So there is one of those. Barcode was, from what I saw, so he was at the SLO, and then he was in the Prime League, but he finished kind of in the bottom tiers for all the sides, which I'm seeing. Like he was never in like a middle pack, but he was always a side which was struggling. And again, that might be the way that I look at it is like could be like Kievo. So we'll talk about Kievo later, but in terms of what happened with Kievo with Barrage last season, Kievo was never really at a side which had like true quality in it. No offense to the other side, but then when he went to Barrage, he actually performed very well because he had these players around him. The issue is this a side which has, I would say, quality players around him, which we found out. I don't particularly know. And then Kahira helped Vipers qualify for Nordics, but then decided to go to Demise, I believe, and then played 4 games, and then Demise did the whole swapping thing. So I don't know what to think about that as well, and that could be again another. It feels like there's a lot of these players which actually maybe have been in bad sides are actually good players, and maybe this is their chance to prove themselves wrong, because a lot of them are players who have been picked up for a reason and must have been picked up for a reason. And then I don't know, maybe if Monk was ADC and then they had like a solid like mid laner, like someone who I kind of was a middle of the pack or was someone who was consistent, who was actually a mid laner, I might have thought, oh, this side could actually perform pretty well. But I'm worrying about this side. I really am. This could be such a hit and miss kind of roster.
Mm-hmm. I guess one thing that is going for him, like you said, is that the kind of top side Kakan aesthetic, they've kind of been around. You'd hope maybe, I don't know, maybe it's not such a huge thing because you can say it for a lot of the players, but they've been around the Nordics for a long time. They probably know a lot of the players. They'll know how they play. That may even help, I don't know, with sort of drafting game plans and whatnot. What you said about Barcode maybe being a bit worried he could just lose his place back to Monk. I saw that. I know they're both Estonian, and that may just mean absolutely nothing. But then it may also mean that
they thought of this.
It could be that I don't know. Maybe he's even friends with Monk, and it was maybe Monk's recommendation. If it might, I wouldn't even be surprised because was Monk on MnM before when he was in the UK? I don't remember exactly who.
So Monk was with MnM. I believe it was the first season of the UKLC, I believe, and then Monk went to
Team MCES.
Yeah.
Then LDLC.
And then he went to LDLC.
So, I don't know. Maybe that MnM wanted him back. Maybe they were struggling to get a mid laner, and he swapped and then recommended Barcode to be. I don't know. The only thing I can think of, and you know what? Yeah, maybe eventually we'll have him on the show because I'd love to talk to this about it. Because the only thing I can think of is that this was his decision. I cannot imagine, like MnM saying, Monk, we will have you, but you're playing mid lane. For me, it would be the case of Monk. I will play. I am going to be pushing myself as a mid laner. I think I can play mid lane, and let's see what side can take me as mid lane. Because for me, like I said, despite what happened at LDLC, he still performed well for LDLC throughout the regular season. There's no denial about that. This guy could have been probably like a top 3, top 4 ADC in the league for me personally. I might be completely wrong, but for me, that's what he felt like. He's a very carry orientated ADC as well, and for me, it feels like a Monk choice. I cannot imagine. For me, if this wasn't a Monk choice, then I would have seen Monk at ADC and Barcode at mid, or something along those lines. But let's see what happens. Yeah.
You can play Tristana mid, I guess, couldn't you still?
Lucian, Corki.
Yeah, Corki is one of those champions where every ADC could probably play him as well at this point. So, so that could be one of those, but then that is so meta specific that you wouldn't risk a whole split decision over it. No. If you would, then you would at least get a sub mid, or something like that. But it's interesting. I couldn't merit putting them above any of my other B tier sides, because I would feel like it'd be a bit of an injustice to the other sides for me, because I'm like, we don't know anything about how mid's going to play in the mid lane. And a lot of these players around him, while maybe good, have not performed particularly well, at least recently or in ERLs. So it's kind of like they have picked maybe the best players out of Bad Bunch, but it'd be very interesting. How many BT sides have you got, by the way?
I have 2.
So I have 4. So okay. I thought I was being mean. So I'm glad.
Was Team Singularity one of your others?
No, Team Singularity are not.
Okay, so how we do it then? So now this is where we've. All right, it's going to kick off then. So
right. Well, you tell me what your B tier sides are. So is it Team Singularity and MnM?
Yeah, that was it. So and if I'm being honest, my B tier I didn't see as that much above my C tier, which is why I almost didn't have a B tier. I was doing
excuses.
And I was kind of putting teams where I was thinking, then I realised, wait, I've literally got no one in B, so I just had to kind of cut C in half and move them up.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I'm just being harsh and you're being a bit nicer, and they're sort of similar, but yours are more in B.
But then I've also not put Singularity in B.
Yeah.
We'll talk about Singularity anyway, because I put them in C. I haven't put them in D. They are top of C for me, so they are close to B tier in my opinion. But for me, it's the only reason Scood is very good. And you know what? And if I go off Enclade Scood, so the team it's Flexo, Scood, Vero, Takesa, and only 35. So if I go off Scood in terms of XL and what I've seen of Scood in terms of the UK scene, not disappointing, but not impressive at the same time. However, what he did at not Dark Passage, was it Dark Passage? Team Singularity, sorry. What he did at Team Singularity was very impressive, and he got them promoted. He got them into EU Masters, and they made it into the group stages. Yes, they went 0-6, but they were the top side in the Nordic scene, and so that you have to give them some credit for that. For me, though, that's where the major positives end, and this is because of maybe lack of knowledge for me. But Takesa is a young player. He is a very, very young player. He's a good player in solo queue. I do know that, and a lot of people have told me about that. He got promoted in the Nordics and then finished 7th with his side, which, to be fair, for a young player, probably isn't that bad, and he's probably an upgrade with the players he's got around him. But everybody else just doesn't feel special to me. And it reminds me a little bit of Phelan last year, where I looked at Phelan, I was like, there's nothing inherently wrong with that side, but I couldn't find anything where I'm like, okay, this is a thing. This is a thing for them.
I get what you mean. There's no way where you think, okay, this person, they're going to be playing around this lane, or this player is their star player. Yeah, I get what you mean. You're not excited by like a semi Barrage retirement home reunion?
With Vero, yeah. Well, Vero was another one. He obviously got Barrage back into the UKLC, and then went to Cyberground and finished mid-table in the Italian league, which, well, to be fair, is apparently the same quality of competition as what the NLC is. So we'll see how that goes. But for me, I don't think it is. So when I look at the other mid laners, for just off how he's performed, he doesn't rank up as well as the well-known names, to be fair. And a lot of this could be biased, but we know a lot of other names and even names which you don't know, I feel like have performed better in ERLs. Mm-hmm. Flaxis was at Existence in the SLO and then didn't qualify for the Nordics, the last split with one of his sides, and then decided, I think, just to take a break off. That could be a good thing or a bad thing, but for me, you finished 8th in the SLO and then you didn't qualify for Nordics. To be fair, there's a lot of sides, actually, when we look at the teams going down, where they had sides which tried to qualify for Nordics and couldn't, and just went into like the Danish league, but he decided I believe, to just take time off. Seems like a solid player. Mm-hmm. And then only 35 was at Dusty again, and this is another mid-tape. Dusty, obviously in the NLC now, finished 6th in the Nordic Championships, I think it was. So again, mid-table. So it looks like could be a solid player in the Nordics. But I think that the Nordics is... I think that the UKLC was actually stronger than the Nordics, and this is where I may be wrong. I think overall, I thought if you actually compared the UKLC, maybe, like I said, maybe it's biased, but I think that the UKLC was the stronger of the two regions. And so when you've got then someone who's from like a mid-table Nordic side in this new NLC, for me, it doesn't really rank up that well. But that is, again, me, and it could, again, just be a case of a bad player. But there are other former Dusty players who are also in this side, so there could have just been good players, not in this side, but in this league. I didn't have much confidence in Team Singularity, and it's a shame because I think this is a big org as well, which have come in.
I think it's one that could have a pretty high ceiling. You said about TakeSet being like a kind of a known solo queue player. And only 35, despite not really having... I don't think when you look at his past teams, he was on Fenerbahce for a fair while, but he was always in like the Challenger League of their second division. I wouldn't even know where to kind of rank that league against the RLs. But you'd hope he's had a fair bit of experience, and maybe with TakeSet being more like a rookie ADC, maybe a good pair there. It was one that I could understand putting them a bit lower because, like you said, you don't see straight away a clear, strong, like who's their strongest player. This is going to lead them to a playoff or whatever. But I think it's one that could have a higher ceiling because it's got maybe a bit of a younger player.
Yeah.
And we never know.
And I do think TakeSet, if there is going to be someone, I'm not saying that there is, but for me, TakeSet could be one of those players where after 2-3 weeks, I'm like, I'm wrong. TakeSet's the person actually who's going to take this side forward. I don't see it too much with Vero, but again, there are players which could convince me and be like, actually, yeah, these are players who, this is the way that they are going to play. And I think this is kind of where hindsight could get me wrong. This side could be very good, but I just don't know how they're going to play, and I don't know how they actually square up against other teams. It's only when I think a couple of games have been playing that I could be like, oh, maybe I have got them wrong. I think this is the lowest they're going to be. I don't think they're going to be any lower than C tier for me. But at the end of the day, I just couldn't. I couldn't put them above some other sides.
That's fair enough. Who else have you got in B then? In your big
So,
block?
my 3 other B teams are, and this is in order. So I have MnM at the bottom of B tier, but then I've gone Tricked, Barrage, and ENCE.
Okay. So let's start with. Well, actually, those 3 are all of my C tier. So we're not like that far off. Let's start with Tricked, shall we? What was your thoughts on that then?
I wonder who's in B tier then. Yeah, we'll start with Tricked. I like Tricked roster, but it's I don't want to say it's very feeling it. It's not.
It's
like the tune.
It's like half of it's like the MnM core, isn't it? Software, tube, pad. Which that MnM side was one that we'd thought would be pushing for playoffs, and maybe we were a bit unlucky at how strong Barrage ended up playing. I think we'd said before because they were kind of a bit unexpected. So you could look at it and say, well, that team didn't even get in playoffs in the UKLC. Is it worth keeping half the team? But then, like we said, it was maybe a bit unlucky, and Pad clearly sees something in those players as well. What are your thoughts on the others?
I think Aaron. Again, if we're going off performance, obviously second in the PG Nationals, weren't he? So outplayed in the regular season. So for me, like he clearly must be a quality player to have left aside. Which he could have got an EU Masters spot with. At the end of the day, let's be honest. So he looks like he could be a good player. PlayStation is Team Singularity again. So was he Team Singularity?
He was.
Yes. So he's Team Singularity. So obviously, I think I got one of them wrong then. I think I've got 2 Team Singularity supports. Or was I talking about the ADC? I can't remember. Oh, it doesn't matter. But PlayStation's Team Singularity, so
Yeah.
a really, really decent player. Obviously has done well. Obviously to get to get first and to get into group stages. Oh no, we haven't, because I talked about Vipers before. I think it was. To get into EU Masters, despite going 0-6, is still quite. You're still probably in one of the strongest Nordic teams right now. And Razor, again, I have nothing to say about him, unfortunately. Again, but I know that he was at Nordavind. They rated him highly. They thought they were going to do well, and they finished 5th. So the only thing I can really talk about is, like I said, Soft and Achu. Soft is a decent jungler. And I hope he proves me wrong. I was surprised to see him in the NLC, and that's unfortunate for me to say. I was actually. I mean, I've got my whole thoughts about the fact that some British sides haven't even put British players in. Yeah, you look at Nordavind and Tricked, who have got British players in, but that's one of those. But for me, Soft was not a player I expected to be in, because he played well for MnM, but he was never the standout player. And that might be then just me not just paying attention. But for me, he was never the player we ever talked about. And that might not be a good thing. It might not be a bad thing. It might be a good thing, because he might be just a facilitator of the side. Achu, though, is a good pickup, if I do have to say. So he after MnM, he went straight to Dark Passage, didn't he? And then he ended up finishing 2nd, I think. Is Dark Passage TCL, isn't it? So the Turkish league.
It looks like semi-finals in the playoffs there.
Yeah. So he got to the semi-final. I think they finished 2nd in the regular season. So that's brilliant. And the fact that you've gone into a side straight after this, kind of disappointing season with MnM. We always expected MnM to be this, playoff side. Let's be honest. That. I think he's done very well, and they've obviously got the chemistry with Soft. So this is why I've got them top of B. I've slated them a lot, but I actually think that they've got quite what could be a very good mid laner. They've got a good bot lane. In fact, it's probably a top 5 bot lane for me, or a top 4 bot lane, if I actually look at it. And then the only issue for me then is really top lane and jungler. If Soft is just a facilitator, that's not a bad thing. And then if Vasor is one of these players where he just was having a bad time at Nordavind, then for me that's a good. He could actually end up being a very, very good player. So it all depends, I think, on Eren and how he performs. Is the main thing.
Yeah, I think last time we saw him was the Enclave team that got into EU Masters. So obviously a decent time there. For me, I think Soft was one of the question marks. Again, not to be out of order, but I don't know. I was a bit surprised to see him get an NLC team. Good enough, fair enough for him. And if he ends up playing well, then that's really good. But even someone like, even if we're thinking UK, like even I thought PFI last time he was on. I know he didn't. I don't think he was on a team in spring, but when he was on Diabolus, I think last summer. For me, looked like a stronger UK jungler at least. And obviously, we know that it doesn't even just have to be UK. There could be any Nordic jungler basically. So that's kind of why I had them. I had them in C, but then, like I say, my whole B and C was all really quite close anyway. So I wouldn't, in that case, I wouldn't even be surprised to see them kind of push into the top half or be pushing for playoffs either.
Like I said, I had them as the top, because I think that. While I was surprised that Soft is in, it wasn't like for me he didn't deserve it. It was just a surprise to me, and then that makes me think though. Actually, it does make sense, considering he has this partnership with Pad and he has this partnership with Achu, and that sometimes can also be very, very beneficial as well. Like these 3 players have played together. Well, not 3 players, but these 2 players and the coach I believe that they were there also at Feeling at one point as well. I think it was. Or
I don't think Pad was, but I think
Because I know Pad did the Miracle one with Firen.
Oh, right,
you're
right, yeah, he did.
So they've clearly got this kind of like synergy, and that would benefit them.
Yeah.
I think early on in the season as well. Mm-hmm. And if Erin is good and Visor, whatever his name is actually really a solid player, it's interesting. But there is a bit more ifs and buts, and this is why my B teams are actually these are teams which I think can do very well, but there are ifs and buts about them. Apart from ENCE, ENCE was the only other side I looked at and thought I could actually put in. I could either put in A or C at the same time with ENCE. It was really weird.
Should we do ENCE next then?
Yes, yeah, I don't mind.
So we're talking about. Let's talk about Kevo. He's probably the player we're most associated with. I think he's one that you said earlier had not always looked like one of the top ADCs when he's been playing in the UK, and perhaps was just the fact that he was on maybe weaker sides before, because as soon as he did get a good team, he suddenly looked a lot better. It might help, and this is where we're going to start pronouncing things really horribly. He's played with, is it Cepha? I guess, is that how you'd say it? I think they played together before. Let me just double check where it was. So there could be some, kind of like existing synergy. So bot lane wise, could be quite a strong point for them. This was one, I'll be honest, I didn't know too much about a few of the players. Seeing as Kevo is the only one that's really played in the UK. So again, I had these guys in C, but my whole B and C is like a big blob anyway. I kind of like that they've gone for like the whole Finnish thing. Like you said about the UK teams not always getting UK players. It would have been nice to see someone commit to that. But I guess in terms of tier lists, that's kind of irrelevant.
Yeah, but you know what? I really like the fact that ENCE have actually got a Finnish side, but it doesn't feel like a gimmick. I think it would have been very, very easy for a lot of these sides to, let's just put 4 Norwegian players, or Dusty, let's just pick 4 Icelandic players, 5 Icelandic players, and it'd be a bit gimmicky. But for me, like, ENCE haven't done that. They've picked Icelandic players, yes, but these players are probably all deserve to be in the NLC. The only one is Cepha. Now, I just checked, and I don't think Cepha and Kevo have played together. So Kevo used to play for like Nikrik. Oh, what is NYRRIK? That one. But he played for White, and they played at different times. But they have both played for that organized. Like literally, the only thing I have for Cepha is played for the Finnish side. Seems quite unknown. Like, 'cause he doesn't. There wasn't much about him I could find, and he's probably the only weak spot I could see. But that could be because he's just as good solo queue player, and this is his actual chance to shine. Kevo was one of the most underrated players, I thought, in the UKLC. In terms of like his performances, definitely deserved more credit. But because of the likes of Ericsson, I thought Kevo was probably the second best player for Barrage, and didn't get really any credit for it, really. And they definitely stepped up. So he's definitely a quality player who deserves to be in there. Simply failed to qualify for Nordic Champions, for Nordic Champs, I believe, with Nirikwi, but then did well in the Nordics as well. But he's quite young,
like a
though.
Different league, isn't he? I was getting like confused about
that. So the Nordic Championship, and then like the Nordics. Is it LCD or something? I think they're different divisions or something. But he failed to qualify for the Nordic Champions, which sucks. But he is only 19, so he's quite a young player. So he could just be a promising player. And to be fair, like with the players around him, it actually could be quite good. I look at you are right. We are going to get these names wrong. Taiki.
I would think Taiki, yeah.
Yeah, who was at Galatasaray, Sport in the TCL at one point. Then failed to qualify for Nordics again. But I feel like the record does speak for him a little bit of himself, a former TCL player as well, so it could be quite good. And maybe after failing to qualify for Nordics, he's developed a little bit more. And then now as part of Team Singularity. So, like, he's clearly a good player in terms of the Nordic region. He won the whole split, the Nordic Championships with Team Singularity. So it's a mixed bag. And
Neela actually did qualify for Nordic Championship, so he must be
yes, and he did.
one of the best players in the world.
It's really weird. So when I first did my notes, I was like, didn't qualify for Nordic Championships, but finished first in regular season. I'm like, no, that's a different league, right?
Yeah.
It was so. You know what? To be fair though, probably if there was like a Norwegian doing our tier list, so UKLC, UKEL, Forge of Champions. Probably as soon as they see Forge of Champions, like, what is Forge of Champions? this cup tournament.
Yeah.
But for me, like, ENCE they look like a solid side, but I can only go off the players which I know. And I only know kind of Kievo and Niall because of Team Singularity. I watched Team Singularity. The only Nordic sides I really paid attention to was Vipers and Team Singularity, unfortunately, because they were, for me, Vipers because of Den Voxnay and Team Singularity because they were one of the best sides in the division. But the other three I'm unsure of. But Niall looked like a good player, like a really, really good player. Kievo also is, from what we saw last split, is a quality player. Now, hopefully he can maybe be the star of this team. He wasn't the star last season, and maybe this is his chance to actually do something. And it's quite easy to understate how good having 5 players of the same nation is. Because I'm guessing chemistry-wise, a lot of them are probably already there culturally. I know that sounds really silly, but because they're all from the same country, there's no communication issues. There'll be no. A lot of these players probably would have played each other in solo queue anyway. So like just off the bat and everything. So I think that will actually help them in the long run. But yeah, so I like ENCE's roster, and they're a side which I do think could be better than what I have them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Despite it being B and me being very, very nice, apparently.
Yeah, I think Simply was probably the biggest question mark for me. Just, I said it earlier, it's just looking at teams and how well their teams are done. So that might mean absolutely nothing. But he has only been playing competitive, I think, about a year. So
yeah, that
could be that he's just, that a year you're only going to be on 3 or 4 teams, and that could just be bad luck. It could just be that he is, an up and coming player and is still developing, and maybe this could be that extra boost, and he may be, we never know, one of the stronger mid laners. We'll find out.
Yeah, and then Barrage is my other team.
So am I the one? Am I the one that's going to piss off Barrage this split then? Because I had them C.
I was going to say
actually, and that's even nice. Barrage, a lot of people have had them like in the bottom of their group. I've seen.
Yeah, so the problem with Barrage, for me, and despite me putting them in B tier, the problem with Barrage is that they were kind of like my measuring stick of if I think they are better than Barrage, then they go one side, because for me they feel like a mid-table side. They don't feel like a side which is going to do anything, and that's probably worse than saying that they're a bad side, I would say. They're going to try, and they've got quality players, and they're going to do something. The only reason why I didn't put them in C is because of Den Voxnay, because I may be a little bit biased towards him, because I absolutely just enjoy playing Den Voxnay play. My favourite time watching the UK scene was the UKLC first split, when you had Den Voxnay and Monk. And, because you had those 2 players outside of, like, it was Xmati and Inax. So outside of Xmati and Inax, you had Den Voxnay and Monk, and these were, like, 2 proper good ADCs. Obviously, Den Voxnay made it to E-Masters playing with Vipers, so another one of the Vipers players. But I do look at the other side, the other teams, and be like, Have I overestimated? I think now we're speaking about it, I might have put them in C, but I do look at the team and I think it's okay, unfortunately.
I think a lot of it looks like it would rest on how Den Voxnay does end up playing, because he was one when we talk about that first split, because that was when he was on that, what was it, like EBJY or Brotherhood or whatever, the team that got in and ended up being taken by Demise. And at that point, he was like pretty much a complete rookie. Like I don't think he'd even really played in other tournaments, as far as I know. And he was one of the better ADCs. I know he was like, I think was meant to have been known as like a one trick before. I think it was like Caitlyn or something. But yeah, he looked like a really good ADC and looked like someone that was, mechanically really strong. If they get the best out of him,
I do have to apologise. Yeah, I did make a mistake. It was User and Monk.
Oh right.
Yeah, not Dem. I still like Dem Hotsney though.
I think Monk was there at that time, wasn't he?
Yeah, it was User and Monk because User was Diabolus and Monk was MnM. Yeah, and then the next season was the EJBY Brotherhood, and then Device took them over. Yeah. But yeah, I still rate Dem Hotsney that season as well.
I really enjoyed watching him as well, and I didn't watch much of the Nordics, but then when I went and saw that he was on Vipers, who I think in regular season were top, it didn't really surprise me to see him doing well elsewhere. So I think that's one. I put them in C tier because I didn't see that there was someone that is already kind of at that level, and I didn't look like they do really match up to some of those S and A teams. But then Denvoxney, if there's any player that stands out to me to be someone that could be pushing to be on the level of those higher teams, it would be him. So I'm really excited.
And I do think that they have a good bot lane duo. I think Nightmares is quite good. Diffuse Kids, I think they won the first inaugural season of the Dutch League.
Yeah.
Which obviously I know it's hard, isn't it? Because it was a new season and stuff, but it isn't the same quality of the Nordics. We can be completely honest, but to still finish first and be one of the better players in that side, I think does speak volumes. And so I think Nightmares and Denvoxney is actually a really solid bot lane. But for me, the other three, I don't know enough. And from when I saw it, I don't think there's much which I can. I mean, Flipper, for example, was part of the team which won the LCD, which I believe is the second division in Norway. Not even the second division. I don't know.
Oh, it's Danish, I think.
Is it the Danish league? So he won the Danish league, but again, that's like, where do we rank that?
Yeah.
Like, where would we possibly rank that? Is the first place Danish side better than the fifth place Nordic side? Dreedy played in Portugal, I believe, and then was also with Team Sampi, and I think he missed out in EU Masters. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure he missed out in EU Masters last season. So I think a Team Sampi in. I think they're in the Czech division, are they? Yeah. So I think they were close to getting promoted there, and then Jarden was third in the Norwegian division, not the Nordics. So I don't know. Like that.
Gonna see like steam coming out of your ears in a second.
Like it was with Trainee. I don't really know too much about him, so it could be what happened last season. Last season, I got bit because there was these players who I thought, oh, I don't know anything about them. Mm-hmm. But I do feel like those players, when looking at it, like, one of them was they brought from America, so clearly he must have had something about him for them to have brought him from America. And the other one played in the OCL.
Yeah.
So, not the OCL, the OPL. Yeah. So obviously he would have been a good player. But I don't feel like that they haven't got that, while unknown player, but not from a big region. Mm-hmm. Could work. But yeah, they've got a good bot lane though. I give them that.
Yeah. I think Jadran, especially the mid laner, when you look, he's literally been, before this, he's only even been on 2 teams, and that was by the looks of things for like a couple of not all of it shows up properly on Wikipedia, I think, but it's like a couple of months at a time over the last 2 years. He's had a lot of breaks and he's not been around that much. So you wonder, maybe he's someone that's flown under the radar, and we're expecting him not to be that good, and it turns out he's the next Ericsson for Barrage. We never know. Yeah. One thing I guess that we do know about Barrage, from the staff side, from we've spoken to them, and we've seen them talk about how they do their like tryouts, and they don't not just looking at how good the players are, they look at how they synergize and how they communicate. So from what we've heard, their kind of their scouting model is pretty thorough and it would seem like it worked really well in spring because they had a lot of these players we didn't know about. We weren't sure if they'd be good, and they all gelled really well. So you never know, they make it the same thing this time around as well.
And you do, I do. That's why another thing why I did put them up into beer, because I do think the infrastructure of Barrage is very, very good, and I do think that they'd learnt from when they made the UKLC split last summer, where they absolutely did atrocious, and they really changed, I think, a lot of what they were working through, and a lot of their infrastructure and their scouting as well, and they learned from that and brought in a very, very good squad of, for us anyway, were unknown players at that point. So it could be very, very similar, like you said. So how many sides do you have in C tier? So 2.
No, I had 3, so it was Barrage, ENCE, Tricked.
Okay. Do you have 2 sides in D tier?
I do, yeah.
Okay, so I have Dusty in C tier.
Okay.
Bottom of C tier, so probably best to talk about them first.
Yeah, so with Dusty, I'll be honest, I don't know much about these players. I've maybe done a bit of a Tom Daniels Barrage Spring 2019 in that I've just kind of lumped near the bottom. The one player that we had seen, at least in the UK League, was Jack Spectra. And when he was here, I wasn't, I wasn't blown away.
I want to be honest. I can't remember anything about him. Like, I know that sounds really bad, but to be fair, that was feeling as a whole. I feel like last split, but like I couldn't remember. I had to. I thought I remember that name, and then I checked, and I was like, he was literally at feeling last split, and I forgot. Which is such a shame. But yeah, no. And there was Fittle as well, who played for Barrage in Forge of Champions at one point, 2018, I think it was. No, 2019, it might be. But he played for them in Forge of Champions at one point. Went to Morning Stars, but has never really cemented himself to a team. I feel like this is a bit of a weak roster, purely because I feel like they've got 2 former Dusty players in Legions, and to be fair, the best League of Legends name I've seen, I think, in this tournament, Coincidence, which I think great. Coincidence is great, like fair play. But they were both at Dusty. They've got Cheelm, who was in the Dutch League, 5th. I think he finished 5th in the Dutch League last split, which we've already said we don't know where we value that league in terms of quality.
The Dutch wasn't one. Yeah, it wasn't one of the Nordic sub leagues, was it? It was like a separate ERL.
So they split the Dutch and the Belgium leagues, but again, you don't know where we can kind of put those. And like I already said, like Nightmares, finished 1st and could be a good player, but 5th is not particularly great. And then, like you said, you've got Jack Spectra and Fittle, who, from what I've seen of them, and this is only what I've seen of them, has never really stood out to me. It feels like, I hate to flame them this, but it feels unambitious, and that really sucks to say that. But I can also see why, because from what we know, Dusty isn't the biggest org, and Dusty may or may not have been there for an Icelandic representative, which does feel a little bit, it feels bad, but at the end of the day, they're in there. At least they could then try something and do something around it, and I just don't think they have. And that really upsets me a little bit to see kind of there will probably be I look at a team like Enclave, who were bottom last split, but at least it felt like they were pushing for something, and I feel like they would have done a better job if they were in the in this league, in the NLC. But obviously, because you can't have just full UKLC sides and then some, obviously. They put Dusty in, and it does feel just a bit well, we'll keep 2 of our players, which for me, you finished 6th in the Dutch league. I don't. It wasn't like Nordavind, where Nordavind were expected to perform very well, and so they kept one of their players. This side finished mid-table, has kept 2 of their players, got someone from the Dutch league who finished 5th, and then got 2 players who, from what I've seen, like I said, hadn't done much. It doesn't even scream a playoff side for me, but I do have them I do have them just below Singularity because of how god awful the next side is. But what are you saying about Dusty? Anything else?
No, I think that's pretty much it for me as well. Like, just like you say, nothing really excites you in that team. You said that they're in there as his Icelandic team. That may even be why, not trying to be out of order, maybe why Legions is there. He's the one Icelandic player. So for even that kind of like branding reasons. But yeah, which is another one. It's kind of like, yeah, it doesn't.
There's not much to say about them, is there? Like I feel like as well, because like there's a lot of players which, and it's being honest, there's a lot of players who we don't know, but then we've done a little bit of research about them, and we could get a little bit excited for them. But none of these players I looked at and thought, oh, I really can't wait to see these in the league. Like I was speaking about. Who was it? Like Niall as well. I'm really excited to see in the league, and a few of the top laners, Doxy especially. Like, you know, and that whole Riddle lineup. I look at it and I think this is really, really exciting. But none of those players at Dusty just for me feel like I want to see them, and it sucks. And you know what? I do apologize because we could be proven wrong, and I hope we are. I hope every single side plays absolutely unbelievable League of Legends. Like I never want to go into a league and think, okay, this side's going to perform very well. But we have a tier list for a reason. There's got to be a best and there's got to be a worst.
Exactly.
And then it's up to the sides then to prove that actually we were wrong. Barrage, like, and to be fair, hopefully they take it as not a motivation, but in good jest. Like, I rated Barrage so low. Yeah, Barrage didn't hate the fact that I rated them so low because they believed in their ability.
Yeah, they liked the fact they could prove you wrong.
Yeah, exactly. And I was more than happy to eat my own words and to say, yes, look, thank you. You did prove me wrong. And I hope that some of these sides do that, but maybe Dusty isn't one of them. And I was right with Phelan last season. I said that Phelan looked soulless, and they were. And this does feel like just a weak effort, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, then perhaps even more of a weak effort then. So this is another one we agree on then. Godsent, D tier.
Yes.
I'd even seen, I think it was Frumi, saying that he was like disappointed that they looked like they gave no effort for like someone on another team even say that. It kind of speaks volumes really. Again, we've not really watched these players play, but this is one where you can kind of look and look at the leagues they've been in, and no one's really even. I don't think barely any of them even played in the Nordic League. They played in qualifiers.
So Pedersen,
yeah,
played for
Bifrost, yeah, 7th.
Who was with the Take Set, but for me, Take Set was the person who was the one who was getting developed, and Pedersen was meant to develop in.
Yeah.
But and I feel like you kind of. I give Takes a little bit more leeway because I know how good he is at solo queue. So, but for me, like C-Boy, I tried to get excited for these players. But I thought C-Boy, actually, to be fair, finished 4th with Morning Stars in Italy, which is the similar level of the NLC again, apparently. So, but no one else just looks good. Like And maybe it is recent. Maybe it is because we've been told things in terms of like we've been told that this Godsent roster is basically just Godsent were like, let's just find some players, and they found some players and they've not put effort in, and maybe that did lower my estimation of what these players are, because some of them could be good players, but for me, if the organization isn't going to put effort in, then are the players even going to put a lot of effort in? Or are we, like, as you said with Barrage put so much time and effort into trialing, into finding not just the best players, but the right players. And these maybe could have even been the 5 best players they could have found, but they may not even work well together. And so it's such... I think I've rated them so low because of just, I think, of how other people have reacted to the squad. But then I look at it and I thought, the squad's not good anyway, from what it looks like. So I don't know what to think. And it is so upsetting because Godsent is actually such a big organization that it feels like an organization with like 200 followers would have put at least a little bit more effort and got more of a result than a Godsent side. Because let's be honest, like, I don't even know why this doesn't even benefit Godsent if these rumors are true. Because you going into League of Legends, you might have some crossover. Some people like, oh, I'm just going to look at it because I support Godsent, and then be like, oh, that side's terrible. I'm not going to look at the league anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and especially if they like, obviously, when you know a little bit more about League of Legends, you can spot a bad player. So you can spot a good player in a bad side. But if you're just coming from like another game and seeing your side lose, all you're looking at is like the score line and looking at everything else. You're not looking at, oh, actually though, the pathing of this player was really good, and despite us losing, this player actually played pretty well, and oh, there's a bit of hope. They're just going to look at it and be like, oh, our side's terrible. Look at us. Well, 12 kills to 0. What's this, you know? And then leave. So it just feels bad for them. And maybe it is because I expected more of them. And maybe I'm a bit too harsh on them as well. But have you any thoughts on this side?
Not much other than that, really. Like, I said for like Dusty, there was no one that looked that exciting. This is like the same thing, but somehow even worse. Like, I think the only player that was in the Nordics last year was Hoyes, I think, and he was on that same Dusty team we're talking about that had a few players still sticking on the team, but they didn't really do that much in the Nordics. So, well,
you had Pedersen, who played for Bifrost, you had Hoyes, who was at Dusty, but then you would say that these are lower side Nordic team. But for me, and then you've got Seaboy, like I said, who finished 4th in Italy, so he could be good. But then you've got Milkmer, who probably, unless it's Monk, is probably the worst mid laner in this division. If you're going off kind of, you know, what is the other pool of mid laners. And then you've got Champion, who failed to qualify with the Nordics and then finished 6th in the Prime League. But I guess, you know, the Prime League might be really good, but I guess, like, for me, if you're finishing in the Prime League 6th and then like you're not getting picked up by teams around that side anyway, there is a little bit of an issue there, because the Prime League is where you want to be. Because let's be honest, as much as the NLC is good, like the Prime League is considered one of the top ERLs, and so you've got that opportunity to be seen by these other top sides, and you've not been picked. So there's clearly then something wrong, or they found other better players. So. Like I said, I can't see this side finishing anything more than bottom. I'm just gonna have a quick check though of what the groups are, because I can't remember what the groups are.
So I've sorted mine, and based on my tier list, I've seen where mine would finish in the groups. I guess we can try and work it out for yours then. So Group A,
I've got them up now.
Yeah, Group A: EXCEL, ENCE, Godsent, Nordavind, Riddle, Singularity. So you've got Godsent last, I presume, which is the same as mine, and EXCEL first.
Yes.
Which is
unsurprising. And then it would probably be, if you had to have a guess. Obviously, this is first. You know, this is before they've even played, so a lot can then change. That's actually quite a strong group then, for what I've put. I would then put Riddle second. Then Nordavind. I'd put Nordavind second, then Riddle, and then it would be, what's the other two? Singularity and ENCE. Yeah. Then I would go.
You had ENCE above Singularity.
ENCE, Singularity. Yeah, that's how I would go.
Mine was the same then, just with Singularity and ENCE swapped around. So not too far off. And then the other one,
I had ENCE in the playoffs then, though, still. So that's a big difference at least.
And then Group B then, I had Fnatic and then Munster. Didn't you say you had the other way around?
I have Munster, Fnatic then, if I go off the tier list, yeah.
So that could be a close one.
I haven't took into account the groups. Yeah. So for me, Group A might have it a little bit easier because they do have Godsent in the group, you know, so it could be a little bit more inflated.
Yeah.
For me, then it goes Munster, Fnatic, Tricked, Barrage, MnM, Dusty is what it would go for mine. Yeah.
Yeah, I had Dusty last as well, and then those other three in the middle. I was like almost completely different. Then I think it's only Dusty last. So I had Fnatic, then Munster, then MnM, Tricked, Barrage, Dusty. But then I think I had Barrage and Tricked in the same. Yeah, I had them both in C tier, so I wouldn't be too surprised either way. That was a bit of a tricky one.
I have them both in B tier. So,
yeah.
Who did I have in playoffs then? Was it Barrage or was it?
Barrage and Tricked. So you said MnM 5th. So MnM missing out.
No, that makes it. That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. It's just so they don't shout at me, Barrage, for not. At least I could say, hey, I put you in the playoffs. So, like I said, in the playoffs, though, anything can happen. I would be happy, though, I look at the groups, though, and I think there are actually some strong sides who could get better. And so, it's interesting to see, because I haven't really fully looked at it. It's interesting to see Munster and Fnatic in the same group, because that's going to be very, very interesting to see how those two fare up, because they're the sides which I think, and then in the same sense, is it going to be a case of BT where they're just going to smash that group and then got beat by the B2 side because they've been overconfident again? It could be one of those, but
it's a bit weird. It's kind of unexpected, I think, the way they've done the groups. I think everyone had sort of expected that they'd split it country-wise, so they'd have like half the UK teams in one, half in other. It seems like it's mostly the UK teams in B and then the Nordics in A.
Yeah.
But just with XL, because obviously they couldn't really have them and Fnatic together.
Yeah. Well, I think what they did is they did it probably the fairest way they could have done, and that was split the academy sides and then randomize it, which I think at that point is the fairest side to do it. That's what I've heard, that it was literally just split the academy sides and then they just randomized. Which is, it worked out okay. And then I'd hope that in the future they go off kind of like a seeding system or something. Yeah. But that'll be interesting to see what happens. Are we going into the games then?
Yeah, so let's finish up with some predictions. And these are, week one is always a bit of a tricky one. Basically, what I've just done is, for each match, I've seen who was higher on my tier list and I put them to win.
Yeah, I don't think we'll talk too much about it because we've been going for about 2 hours.
Exactly. So let's just go through it. So we had Godsent XL. I'm going to put XL for you, Tom.
Yes, I would say. The worst side in the league. I think Godsent have got this one. Yeah, no, it's XL. Yeah.
Yeah, XL. I think that's fairly safe. Then we got Riddle and ENCE. I think we both had Riddle above on the tier list. Would that be a Riddle win for you?
Yeah, because I'm also thinking of the sides and how because why I think that there may be a stronger side in the end. Like, so for me, this is like my end kind of like where I think they are in terms of strength. And I don't take that doesn't really take too much into account in terms of synergy right at the beginning. So I do think ENCE will have some good synergy right at the beginning. But I'll go for Riddle.
Cool. And then we got Nordavind and Team Singularity.
Nordavind.
Yeah, same here. Barrage Fnatic. UK clash.
It's going to be Fnatic, isn't it? Right.
That means Barrage are going to win then,
unless
the curse is finished now. We'll see. Then day 2, we've got Munster against MnM. I've gone for Munster. Again, these aren't surprises for mine. I've literally just gone off my tier list.
Yeah, I've gone Munster.
Yeah. And then we've got Dusty against Tricked. I've gone for Tricked, but did you have him in the same tier? Or...
no,
you didn't.
I had Tricked top of B tier, so I've gone for Tricked.
Okay, that's cool. And then we've got...
How does these work? Do they just mix both?
I think so, because I think some teams only play one game in a week as well. So it's not just like 2 games a week for everyone. It is a bit weird.
So ENCE are playing. And they both only play in the group, don't they? They always play their group, don't they? At this point.
I guess because that means it's like a double round robin of only 6 teams. Then there's not actually as many games for each team to play. So they just sometimes play 1 a week, I think.
That's so weird.
XL.
Apart from week 7, where it's a double week.
Yeah. So I think like XL, Munster are only playing once. MnM are only playing once.
Interesting.
Riddle only playing once. But yeah, we got two more. We got ENCE and Nordavind.
I'm gonna go ENCE.
Is that just to have one a bit different?
Just have one a little bit different, yeah.
I had Nordavind, unsurprisingly. So there we go. And then the last one, Singularity against Godsent.
Oh, how lucky is Singularity, the fact that they've got Godsent in their league. Like, sorry.
Well, I had them above ENCE as well. So.
You did, yeah, you did. I had them in C tier. You had them in B, didn't you? So, yeah. I'm gonna go, Singularity.
There we go. So almost the same.
Have we got almost all of them the same?
Yeah, you've gone for ENCE against Nordavind just for a bit of a tricky one.
Give me ENCE over Riddle as well. I'll change that one. I think ENCE might do pretty well out of the box, despite me having them in B tier. I think they could do.
Yeah, it makes sense. What you know, the reasoning. It's not like your ones at the end of the last split where you've got to try and change it up a bit. It does make sense.
And like I said, like Riddle could be just one of those boom teams. I really like the side, but they could just be terrible. Like, I don't know. We've seen weirder things happen.
Yeah. Cool. I think that's a good time to finish up then. I think it's been our longest episode ever.
Probably has.
The last time we did a tier list, it was like, what is it, 9 teams?
8 sides. Yeah, 8 sides. Yeah.
So geez, it's gone on for ages, and we had a couple of topics we had to talk about as well. But let's finish it then. I think as the time that we're live with this, the NEC is on, so we do want to go and see some of those games as well, and not miss the whole thing.
Yeah, imagine if we miss XL, like one of the Brits.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, let's finish it up then. So thanks for watching.
Are you going to be posting the tier lists or something like that on Twitter or something like that?
Yeah, we can do something. We'll post it and get flamed, I'm sure.
Yeah, perfect.
There we go. So yeah, thanks for listening then, anyone. I think we had a couple of people dropping in and out live, so if you're watching it live, thanks very much. You can follow on the Twitch. If you're listening to this back later on, either on Spotify or YouTube, of course you can follow on those platforms as well. Our Twitters are both on the screen, so you can follow us there. And Tom has just started streaming on Twitch himself as well.
Yes,
where can they find you, Tom?
Manager. It's VTD, so it's just the to the.
There we go. So yeah, drop him a follow as well. And that's it. Thanks for listening.